Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today's video is going to cover March sales for some CGC graded Star Wars books, mainly 9.8s, but I do have some lower grades for some of the key issues from the original Marvel run. We've got some autographed books, things like that. I hope you enjoy this comic book market update for Star Wars books. I try to alternate occasionally and not just cover Star Wars books, but I'll do some Bronze and Copper Age books occasionally as well. I try to release these on Sundays. So let's go ahead and take a look at some recent sales. We'll start off with Star Wars #1. This is a good idea for any of you that are submitting items at a convention, if Mark Hamill happens to be at one, or maybe through the Star Wars autograph universe. If you have a mid-range copy of Star Wars #1, that's a good one to submit through CGC for autographs. Occasionally he'll do them with CGC where they have like a signed session. You can submit a copy of a book and then automatically grade it, because this was only an 8.0 and it had white pages, but it was signed by Mark Hamill. But look at that sales price. It sold for $13.50. So that shows you how desirable his autograph is on a Star Wars #1. And really kind of any vintage book or even a modern book is fine, but I just thought that was an interesting comparison, because you look at this 8.0 signed by Mark Hamill, sold for $13.50, and then we had a 9.6 unsigned with white pages that sold in an auction for $7.18. So you're talking a good 40 to 50% more for a lower grade copy signed by Mark Hamill versus a unsigned 9.6 for $7.18. That's a pretty incredible price difference. Another 9.6 that sold at auction from this seller. This seller had some other books we're going to cover in a second, but this was a great deal at $700 for a 9.6 with white pages of Star Wars #1. Same seller also had a 9.6 for Star Wars #2. This is obviously the first interior comic book appearance of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Chewbacca, and Han Solo. So it's not as important of a book as #1, but it's also pretty important. It's a pretty great cover as well. So not a bad time to pick up this one if you want a 9.6 for Star Wars #2 at $200. I mean, for a while there, this book was significantly more expensive in both a 9.6 and a 9.8, but it has come back down to earth. I also have several data points for Star Wars #42. First was a 9.6 direct edition with white pages in an auction, or excuse me, in a buy it now. That one sold for $4.29. It had a little bit of a miswrap going from top to bottom. You can see that white border there gets a little wider towards the bottom. So it wasn't perfect, but for a 9.6 white pages, direct edition, $4.29. And then this was a beautiful CVA 9.8 white pager newsstand edition for Star Wars #42. So the CVA sticker in the upper left-hand corner just means that it's a particularly exceptional copy according to CGC. And again, this was a 9.8 newsstand. That one sold in an auction, only one bid at $1,000. During the Book of Boba Fett, this was over $5,000. I mean, it's crazy how much this one has dropped, and that's a great deal for a 9.8. Here was another 9.8 that sold in an auction, also a newsstand edition. That one sold for $11.77. So 1,000 or $11.77, both of those sold within about a week of each other. So interesting sales comparison there for Star Wars #42. Obviously, this is the first U.S. standard comic appearance of Boba Fett and Yoda in comics. In a timeless cover from Al Williamson. Awesome book. Next up, 9.8 Star Wars #68. This is a direct edition. This is the first appearance of Mandalorians and the planet Mandalore in comics. This one sold for $727 in an auction. This book continues to drop. I mean, it's really gone down. For a while there, it was around 900. For a while there, it was around $2,000. Then it was 1,200, and now then it was 900. Now it's 727. So it's unbelievable how much this book has dropped. Pretty good time to buy it. Here was a 9.8 newsstand edition. That one sold for $11.25. So pretty big price difference between a newsstand and a direct edition. $727 in an auction versus $11.25 for the newsstand edition of Star Wars #68. Star Wars #71 in a direct edition. I believe this is the first full appearance of Bosk in comic books. His first cameo is in Star Wars 42. 71 is the first full appearance of Bosk. And this storyline covers Lando and Luke trying to get back Han Solo while he's still in Carbonite. The quest for Han Solo. So that one sold for $113.50. And this is a cover I've always liked. I don't have this one yet, but I love this cover. It shows Bosk and some of the other bounty hunters, IG-88, and I don't know who these other characters are, but it's got Bosk and IG-88 getting ready to push Lando and Luke into like a pit. And that's Star Wars number 72 in a 9.8 with direct edition. That one sold for $128.01. Now, here's an interesting sale. And I went back and looked on Go Collect to figure out why this was so expensive. It's not really a key issue. It's a great cover. Don't get me wrong. It's got Darth Vader on the cover. But it's Star Wars number 80. And it's like the first appearance of some character I've never even heard of. First appearance of Ellie. Death of Tay Varys. Darth Vader appearance. I mean, again, it's kind of a secondary book. I've never heard of it at all. And it sold for $782.77. This is a direct edition as well. So I went back and looked on Go Collect, and I was like, I bet it's pretty low census count. That was my guess. And if you go to Go Collect's page, sure enough, there's only 39 on the census. There has not been any sales in the last year. And so this is the first one that is sold in over a year. For $782.77. So 39 books in a 9.8 edition for this book. So just crazy. It just shows you that there's probably some collectors out there that are wanting to complete their 9.8 collection, the full run of Marvel books. And so when these low census count books show up on eBay at auction or elsewhere, it commands big money. But I guarantee you that there's some people, their ears and their radar perked up when they saw this sale. And I bet that you'll see a bunch of these in the next few months pop up on eBay in a 9.8, because I'm sure some people have this book just, in a baggie, and then they'll get it pressed and cleaned, and then they'll send it to CGC to try and get the 9.8, because that 782 number is a massive number. And in a somewhat down market for Star Wars comic books, CGC graded Star Wars books, this is the kind of thing where the flippers and the investors, they see it. They probably have 20 of them in baggies on boards in their collection in, long boxes. And that will get the floodgates open in terms of new submissions to CGC. So mark my words, we'll see some more copies in a 9.8 that show up at eBay or elsewhere. But 782, that's the first sale in over a year. So that's kind of the new floor for that book, and I guarantee you will see some more here soon. Next up, Star Wars number 81 in a direct edition, 9.8. That's another book that has dropped massively in value. This is the return of Boba Fett. I love this cover. I love it. It's a painted cover. It's just such a beautiful cover. It was Terry Palmer or somebody? Tom Palmer is the cover artist on that one, but look at that cover, man. That's hot. That one sold for $158.49. I mean, I paid like $500 for mine. So this book has really dropped. That's another book to pick up right now if you want it. Next up, we got a 9.6 for Heir to the Empire number 1. Again, another book that has dropped massively in price. In a 9.6, you can pick it up for $150 now. That's a pretty good price point for a near mint copy of Grand Admiral Thrawn's first appearance. And we're going to see more of Thrawn in Disney Plus content, potentially in the new Mandalorian movie called Mandalorian and Grogu. That's the last I've heard. Who knows if it actually happens, but supposedly Dave Filoni and others are working on a full movie for the Mandalorian and Grogu, and I would expect we'll see more of Thrawn in that movie. So now's a good time to pick it up in a 9.6 or a 9.8. Really cheap right now. Clone Wars number 1. This is the standard cover A, 9.6. That one sold for $650. 9.8s are selling around $900, maybe even a little bit less right now. And then we had 2 sales for the special edition of Clone Wars number 1. There's only 1,000 copies printed of this book in a 9.4 in an auction with white pages. That one sold for $11.25. And then also around the same time, a 9.8 sold in an auction for $24.01. That was, I believe, in a what to buy video, and I said aim for $2,400 to $2,500, maybe a little higher, and sure enough, it sold for $24.01. Really good price point. This book was, I mean, like $6,000 at one point. So this is a really good time to pick that one up at a 9.8 with white pages. What else do we have on this video? All right, so this is interesting. So in my what to buy video a few weeks back, there was a Rogue One adaptation, the movie variant cover at auction with a starting bid of like $150. And I said, hey, this is a pretty good starting bid. And it didn't sell. Nobody bid on it. And then after that, another copy, the exact same book, exact same grade, sold for $225. So go figure. All right. I mean, this one was listed at a buy it now price for $75 more than what the starting bid was on the one I showed in my what to buy video, and it didn't sell. So it's crazy how that happens sometimes. So this one sold for $225, Rogue One adaptation. Aim for $150. Aim for $150 to $175, somewhere in that ballpark. Great cover though. First appearance of director Krennic and K2SO, and obviously Cassian Andor and Jyn Erso. But that's a great cover there. Next up, this was interesting. So this was a movie poster, or a replica of the original movie poster, printed by the New Zealand Mint in silver, in fine silver, and it was graded by CGC a 10. So that's pretty cool. I just thought it was pretty cool. It says 10 first releases. I have no idea what any of this means, but 35 gram, 0.999 fine silver. This is a reprint of the movie poster for The Force Awakens in a 10 grade, and that one sold in an auction for $334. There is so much random crap on eBay. I've never even heard of anything like this, but I just thought it was pretty cool to show. Next up, we've got some autographs. I had not seen this book yet, but this is a really cool cover. This is the Mike Mayhew Virgin edition of Mandalorian number 7. And obviously this shows Grand Moff Tarkin in kind of a Mandalorian armor costume. I just thought that was pretty cool looking. That was signed by Mike Mayhew in like glow-in-the-dark ink. That one sold for $400. I love that cover though. Next up is a Thrawn Alliances number 1, signed by Timothy Zahn as well as Lars Mikkelsen, who both voiced Grand Admiral Thrawn in the cartoon and also played Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Ahsoka series. That one sold for $180. I thought that was a pretty nice deal there. And then finally, we had Ahsoka number 1, and it was signed by a bunch of people. It was signed by Rosario Dawson, Ezra Bridger's actor, Iman Esfandi. It was also signed by Morgan Elsbeth, who obviously she was the witch. She was like the witch that was in the Ahsoka series. And then Diana Lee Inosanto. I don't know who that is, but 4 different signatures. Morgan Elsbeth. She was that was the character's name. Morgan Elsbeth was played by Diana Lee Inosanto. So there you go. And then Ezra Bridger signed it, and then obviously Rosario Dawson, and then I think somebody else signed it too. Well, it was triple signed. Okay, never mind. I thought it was 4 signed when I pulled it up originally, but that's pretty cool. You get 3 of the actors from the Ahsoka series all on one book. 9.8 white pager signature series, and it sold for $520. Big number on that one. So that was a really cool sale, though. I just wanted to point that one out. I love the autograph books. I think they're really awesome. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to leave me a like if you did. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.